What if I told you that Atlantis might be real? That vampires walked among us? That the Bible's most terrifying plague actually happened? That Dracula's castle exists and you can visit it today? For centuries, we've been taught to separate fact from fiction, history from mythology, reality from legend. But what if that separation was a lie? Today, we're diving into 15 legendary myths that science, archaeology, and sheer dumb luck proved were disturbingly real. These aren't obscure footnotes. These are the stories that shaped civilizations, inspired nightmares, and defined cultures. The Trojan horse, vampires, Atlantis, the Great Flood, zombies, all real. And by the end of this video, you'll realize that the monsters under your bed, the legends in your history books, and the myths in your nightmares might have been warnings all along. Let's descend into the truth. Myth number 1. Atlantis, the lost civilization. Atlantis was real, and we found it. For 2,400 years, Atlantis has been the ultimate lost civilization. Plato described it in vivid detail. An advanced island empire that sank into the ocean in a single day and night of catastrophic destruction. Philosophers called it allegory, a moral tale about hubris and divine punishment. Historians called it fiction, pure imagination. Then archaeologists started excavating the Greek island of Santorini, and they found something impossible. Beneath layers of volcanic ash was an entire Bronze Age city, Akrotiri. Multi-story buildings, advanced plumbing, sophisticated frescoes. A civilization so advanced it rivaled anything in the ancient Mediterranean. And it was destroyed in a single catastrophic event, the eruption of Thera, one of the largest volcanic explosions in human history, around 1600 BC. The blast was so powerful it triggered tsunamis over 100 feet high. It buried entire cities. It may have ended the Minoan civilization overnight. Plato's timeline was off by about 900 years, likely a transcription error. But the story, the advanced island civilization destroyed in a day by natural disaster, that was real. Atlantis wasn't fiction. It was a memory. Myth number 2. Vampires, the undead plague. Vampires were real, and they terrified Europe. Vampires, undead creatures that rise from their graves to feed on the living. Pale skin, sharp fangs, an aversion to sunlight and garlic. Pure Gothic horror, right? Wrong. In the 1720s and 1730s, Eastern Europe was gripped by vampire hysteria. Not metaphorical vampires, actual reports of corpses rising from graves, attacking villagers, spreading disease and death. Entire towns were in panic. Graves were exhumed. Bodies were staked, beheaded, burned. The Austrian Empire sent military physicians to investigate. What they found was a perfect storm of misunderstood science. Decomposition gases cause bodies to bloat and shift, making corpses appear to move. Blood pools in the mouth, making it look like they've been feeding. Lack of oxygen in coffins preserves bodies, making them look too fresh for their burial date. Add in tuberculosis, a disease that causes pale skin, sensitivity to light, and bloody coughing, and you have the perfect vampire. Victims would waste away, growing pale and weak. Before dying, they'd often name the person who infected them, usually a recently deceased family member. When that person's grave was opened and their body looked too alive, the conclusion was obvious: vampire. The myth wasn't invented by Bram Stoker. It was a medieval pandemic, misunderstood and mythologized. Myth number 3. The Trojan horse. The Trojan horse was real. The story is legendary. Greek warriors hiding inside a giant wooden horse gifted to the city of Troy. The Trojans wheel it inside their walls. At night, the Greeks emerge, open the gates, and destroy the city. It's the ultimate military deception, and for thousands of years, it was considered pure mythology, epic poetry, a metaphor for cunning over strength. Then Heinrich Schliemann found Troy in the 1870s, and the city showed signs of exactly the kind of destruction Homer described. But was the horse real? Here's what we know. Ancient armies absolutely used deception tactics. Siege warfare often involved trickery. And there's archaeological evidence of large wooden siege engines and platforms used to breach walls. Some historians now believe the horse was likely a battering ram, siege tower, or some kind of engineering device, possibly even decorated with a horse's head, as was common. The Trojans, desperate after years of siege, may have dragged it inside, thinking it was a peace offering or religious tribute. And the Greeks used it to breach the walls. The wooden horse might not have been a hollow statue filled with soldiers, but something very much like it brought down Troy. The legend was based on truth. Stay with me, because what's coming next is even darker. We're about to uncover the real Dracula, biblical plagues that actually happened, and zombies that walked the earth. Myth number 4, Dracula's castle. Dracula was a real person, and his castle still stands. Count Dracula, the most famous vampire in history, a creature of pure fiction, created by Irish author Bram Stoker in 1897. Except he wasn't fiction. Dracula was based on Vlad III, also known as Vlad the Impaler, a 15th century ruler of Wallachia in modern-day Romania. And the Impaler wasn't a nickname. It was a job description. Vlad's preferred method of execution was impalement, forcing a wooden stake through a victim's body and displaying them publicly as a warning. He allegedly impaled tens of thousands of people, enemies, criminals, political rivals, even his own citizens. Ottoman ambassadors who refused to remove their turbans in his presence, he had the turbans nailed to their heads. An invading army? He created a forest of the impaled, thousands of corpses on stakes stretching for miles. Bram Stoker read about Vlad while researching Eastern European folklore and combined him with local vampire legends. And Vlad's castle, Bran Castle in Transylvania, still stands today. You can visit it, walk its halls, stand where the real Dracula once ruled. The vampire was fiction, but the monster was real. Myth number 5. The biblical plagues of Egypt, the 10 plagues of Egypt, actually happened. The story is biblical. God sends 10 devastating plagues upon Egypt to force Pharaoh to free the Hebrew slaves. Water turns to blood, frogs swarm the land, darkness covers the earth, the firstborn die. For most of history, this was considered religious allegory, moral storytelling, divine mythology. Then scientists started connecting the dots. The eruption of Thera, the same one that may have inspired Atlantis, sent shockwaves across the Mediterranean. The ash cloud would have turned the sky dark. Volcanic gases could have contaminated water sources, turning them red and killing fish. Dead fish would drive frogs onto land. Dying frogs would allow insect populations to explode, flies, lice, locusts. Insects would spread disease to livestock and humans. Stored grain contaminated with mycotoxins could cause selective deaths, and firstborn sons, who received double portions as heirs, would be most affected. Every plague can be explained as a cascading ecological disaster triggered by a volcanic eruption. The timeline matches, the geography matches, the science matches. The plagues weren't divine punishment. They were a natural catastrophe, witnessed and recorded by terrified people who had no other way to explain it. Myth number 6. Zombies, the walking dead of Haiti. Zombies are real, and they walk among us. Zombies, the undead, mindless corpses reanimated and controlled by dark magic. Hollywood fiction, right? Not in Haiti. In Haitian voodoo culture, zombies aren't metaphors. They're real, and they're terrifying. In 1980, a man named Clervius Narcisse walked into a Haitian village and claimed to be a local man who had died and been buried 18 years earlier. He knew things only the real Clervius would know. Family secrets, personal details. His story checked out. He claimed he'd been poisoned, buried alive, then dug up and enslaved by a Bokor, a voodoo sorcerer. Ethnobotanist Wade Davis investigated and discovered the science behind the myth. Bokors use a powder containing tetrodotoxin, a neurotoxin from pufferfish that causes paralysis, slowed heart rate, and a death-like state. Victims appear dead, are buried, then exhumed and revived. But the brain damage from oxygen deprivation leaves them in a suggestible, zombie-like state. They're not undead. They're drugged, traumatized victims of a horrifying practice. Zombies are real. They're just not supernatural. Myth number 7. King Arthur and Excalibur. King Arthur was real. King Arthur, the legendary British king who pulled a sword from a stone, united the kingdom and led the Knights of the Round Table. Pure medieval fantasy, right? Maybe not. While there's no evidence of a king named Arthur with a magical sword, there is evidence of a Romano-British military leader who fought against Saxon invaders in the late 5th and early 6th centuries. Historical texts mention a warrior named Artorius, or Arthur, who won 12 battles, including the decisive Battle of Baden Hill, which halted the Saxon advance for a generation. The legend grew over centuries, absorbing Celtic mythology, Christian symbolism, and French Romance traditions. But at its core was likely a real warrior, a desperate leader fighting to preserve Roman civilization in Britain as the empire collapsed. Excalibur might be fiction, but the man who inspired the legend, he was real, and he saved Britain. Stay with me, because we're about to uncover the real Noah's Ark. Ancient giants, the fountain of youth, and creatures that shouldn't exist, but do. Myth number 8. Noah's Ark and the Great Flood. The Great Flood actually happened. The story of Noah's Ark is one of the most famous in the Bible. God floods the entire world, and only Noah, his family, and 2 of every animal survive on a massive boat. Global flood? Impossible. Pure mythology. Except flood myths appear in dozens of ancient cultures: Mesopotamian, Greek, Hindu, Chinese, Native American. Why? Because catastrophic floods actually happened. Around 5600 BC, the Black Sea was a freshwater lake separated from the Mediterranean by a natural dam. Then, rising sea levels caused the Mediterranean to break through. The result was catastrophic. A waterfall 200 times the volume of Niagara Falls, flooding thousands of square miles in a matter of months. Entire civilizations were displaced overnight. Survivors would have fled, carrying stories of the flood to distant lands. To them, it was the whole world flooding. The Ark might be embellishment, but the flood? That was real, and it was apocalyptic. Myth number 9. Giants walked the earth. Giants were real. Every ancient culture has legends of giants. The Bible mentions the Nephilim. Greek mythology has the Titans. Norse legends speak of Jotnar. For centuries, these were dismissed as fantasy, exaggeration, metaphor for powerful enemies. Then archaeologists started finding the bones, not of mythical giants, but of humans with gigantism, a medical condition caused by excess growth hormone. Skeletons over 7 feet tall have been found across the ancient world. But here's where it gets interesting. We've also found evidence of Gigantopithecus, an extinct ape that stood up to 10 feet tall and weighed over 1,200 pounds. These creatures lived in Asia until about 100,000 years ago, overlapping with early humans. Imagine encountering one of these in the forest. You'd call it a giant, a monster, a demon, and you'd tell stories about it for generations. The giants weren't supernatural. They were real creatures, remembered and mythologized. Myth number 10, the Fountain of Youth. The Fountain of Youth exists. Ponce de Leon's legendary search for the Fountain of Youth, a spring that grants eternal life, is considered one of history's great wild goose chases. Pure fantasy. Except we found it. Not a magical fountain, but the science behind the myth. In the early 2000s, researchers discovered that the blood of young mice, when transfused into old mice, reversed aging markers, improved cognition, regenerated tissue. The key? A protein called GDF11, abundant in young blood. Ancient cultures didn't have the science, but they observed the pattern. Proximity to youth seemed to invigorate the old. Some historians believe the fountain myth originated from hot springs rich in minerals that genuinely improved health. Others point to the practice of young blood rituals in various cultures, symbolic or literal consumption of youth. The Fountain of Youth wasn't a place. It was a biological principle we're only now beginning to understand. Myth number 11, the Loch Ness Monster. Lake monsters are real. The Loch Ness Monster. Nessie, the most famous cryptid in the world. Countless sightings, blurry photos, sonar readings, but no proof. Pure hoax, right? Here's the thing. Lake monsters have been reported in deep lakes worldwide for centuries, and we keep finding explanations. Giant catfish over 9 feet long, massive sturgeons, Greenland sharks that can live for 400 years and occasionally wander into fresh water. In 2019, scientists conducted a comprehensive DNA survey of Loch Ness. They found no evidence of plesiosaurs or unknown large animals. But they did find an unusually large population of giant eels, some potentially reaching enormous sizes. Nessie might not be a dinosaur, but something large and unusual is in that lake. The sightings aren't all hoaxes. They're misidentifications of real, rare creatures. Stay with me, because these final myths will blow your mind. We're talking about El Dorado, the Bermuda Triangle, werewolves, and ancient curses that actually killed people. Myth number 12, El Dorado, the City of Gold. El Dorado was real. El Dorado, the legendary city of gold that drove Spanish conquistadors mad with greed. Hundreds died searching for it. Expeditions vanished into the jungle. Fortunes were lost. And it was all based on truth. The Muisca people of Colombia had a coronation ritual. A new king would be covered in gold dust and rowed to the center of Lake Guatavita. There he would wash off the gold while his people threw gold and emeralds into the water as offerings. El Dorado didn't mean the Golden City, it meant the Golden Man. Spanish explorers witnessed this ceremony and the legend exploded. A single ritual became an entire city. A lake became a kingdom. In the 1960s, the Colombian government partially drained Lake Guatavita. They found gold, emeralds, artifacts worth millions. El Dorado wasn't a city, but the gold was real, and it's still down there. Myth number 13, the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle kills, but not how you think. The Bermuda Triangle, a region of the Atlantic where ships and planes vanish without a trace. Alien abductions, portals to other dimensions, Atlantean technology. All nonsense, right? Actually, the Bermuda Triangle is unusually dangerous, but for scientific reasons. The area sits above massive underwater methane deposits. When these erupt, they create huge bubbles that reduce water density, causing ships to sink instantly. The region also experiences sudden, violent storms and rogue waves over 100 feet tall. And it's one of the few places on Earth where compasses point to true north instead of magnetic north, causing navigation errors. Add in heavy traffic. It's one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world, and you get more accidents. The Bermuda Triangle isn't supernatural. It's just statistically and geologically deadly. Myth number 14. Werewolves. They were real. Humans who transform into wolves under the full moon. Pure horror fiction. Except medieval Europe was terrorized by werewolves for centuries. The explanation? A combination of rabies, ergot poisoning, and hypertrichosis. Rabies causes aggression, hydrophobia, and animalistic behavior. Victims would bite others, spreading the curse. Ergot, a fungus that grows on rye, causes hallucinations, convulsions, and the sensation of insects crawling under your skin. Entire villages would be affected simultaneously. Hypertrichosis causes excessive hair growth all over the body, creating a wolf-like appearance. Combine these conditions with superstition and fear, and you get werewolf hysteria. People were tried and executed for being werewolves. They confessed under torture. They genuinely believed they transformed. Werewolves weren't supernatural. They were medical conditions, misunderstood and mythologized into monsters. Myth number 15. The Curse of the Pharaohs. Ancient curses actually kill. When Howard Carter opened King Tut's tomb in 1922, newspapers reported a curse inscribed on the entrance. Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king. Within months, Lord Carnarvon, the expedition's financier, died from an infected mosquito bite. Then others connected to the excavation started dying. The press went wild. The curse of the pharaohs became international news. Skeptics called it coincidence, superstition. But modern science found something disturbing. Ancient tombs, sealed for thousands of years, contain toxic mold spores, including aspergillus, which causes deadly lung infections. They also contain bat droppings carrying histoplasmosis and bacteria that thrive in the oxygen-deprived environment. When the tomb was opened, everyone breathed in thousands of years of accumulated pathogens. The curse wasn't magic. It was biology. Ancient, deadly biology. The pharaohs didn't need magic to protect their tombs. They had something better: time. So here's what we've learned. Atlantis sank. Vampires plagued Europe. Troy fell. Dracula was real. The plagues happened. Zombies walk among us. Arthur fought for Britain. The flood drowned civilizations. Giants roamed the earth. The fountain of youth flows in our veins. Lake monsters swim in the deep. El Dorado glittered. The Bermuda Triangle kills. Werewolves terrorized villages. And ancient curses still claim lives. Every myth we explore today started as truth. A real event. A real person. A real creature. A real disaster. And then time, fear, and human imagination transformed them into legends. But here's the terrifying part. If all these myths were real, what about the others? What about the myths we haven't proven yet? The monsters we still call fiction? The legends we still dismiss? The warnings we still ignore? Because if history has taught us anything, it's this. The line between myth and reality isn't a line at all. It's a countdown, and we're just waiting for the proof. If this video made your skin crawl and your mind race, smash that subscribe button right now, because we're just getting started. This channel dives deep into the darkest corners of history, the stories they don't teach in school, the truths they try to bury, and the myths that turned out to be terrifyingly real. You don't want to miss it. Subscribe, hit the bell, and join me in the shadows. Because history isn't boring. It's just been badly told. See you in the darkness.